I try to make it short. If you want to hear anything about theoretical arguments, please look at my chapter in the book. I focus here because the arguments are the same as you discuss it in other places with other connotations, and I want to concentrate to focus on some national conflicts. In these national conflicts, those monetary arguments were instrumentalized for special ethnic or national interests. I want to demonstrate this. The other things we had discussed yesterday and this morning, Matthias brought a lot of arguments. I think I focus on the political, party political aspect here. The story starts around 1867, the year of the Ausgleich, the compromise between Austria and Hungary, and ends around 1892-93 when the Currency Reform Acts passed the two parliaments. I should start with the compromise. After absolutism, the two autonomous states now were constructed with a compromise with own parliaments and governments under the umbrella of the House of Habsburg-Lothringen. Every half of the monarchy had its own right for legislation in all policy fields, except defense and foreign policy. There were no regulations about the monetary system. In 1867, besides the compromise, they made a secret agreement to go away with the privileged Austrian National Bank and the Austrian money for the next time. To find a solution for the monetary regime, they found a solution in, let's call it compromise for the monetary part of the story. Like the compromise, which had to be renewed every 10 years, this arrangement about the monetary system of Austria-Hungary had to be renewed every 10 years too. And we have here two players, the governments of Austria and Hungary, in the background the House Habsburg-Lothringen, and as a fourth player, fourth party of these negotiations, the issuing bank. The result was a privilege charter which lasted for 10 years, and the renewal consolidations for these contracts lasted, took a lot of time, between 12 and 24 months. The nominal standard was silver. The circulation was made of inconvertible paper money issued by both the government and the central bank in those years. The first initiatives may be to switch from silver to gold dated back to the 1850s. The consolidations around the Vienna Coinage Convention of 1857. The result was the German silver standard became dominant in the territories of this monetary union. 1867, Habsburg Empire withdrew from currency union with the German customs union and Liechtenstein. The arrangement with France and the Latin Monetary Union was only about gold coins for foreign trade. Austria-Hungary minted since 1870 4 and 8 gold coins for foreign trade with additional value declaration in French francs. Never realized the plan to join the Latin Monetary Union. Despite moving towards Latin monetary union standards, paper currency became or still was the effective standard of Austria-Hungary. Silver served only as something like a precious metal cover for the bank notes in this time. 1873 depreciation of silver, you heard a lot about it. The initiatives to switch to gold was continuous devaluation of the silver challenged Hungarian interests substantially. Since 1889, the Hungarian government demanded the switch to the gold standard. Late 1880s, Austria-Hungary had the first time balanced national budgets, or nearly balanced budgets, which was seen as a basis for currency reform. And the two treasuries started negotiations the second half of 1889. And in course of the conversation emerged three key topics. First, specification of the exchange rates. Second, whether state notes and silver coins should be kept. And the third question, transformation of the central bank's reserves of silver into gold or not. There were some pressure from Hungary, especially from Hungary in this time. And they put some some pressure on the central bank to change their silver stock into gold. They speculated that the Sherman Silver Purchase Act had some beneficial effects to do this. Here you have just a look on the development of the budget deficits and as percent of the state revenue, 1875 to 1911. And this is the time when they started, really started to get an agreement on a new monetary system, and this worked a little bit stabilizing on the deficit of the Hungarian, the Austrian budget for a couple of years until 1906, when they prepared the campaign against Bosnia-Herzegovina. So maybe something like the preparation of the European Monetary Union. It works for a couple of years and then it goes out of control. Well, the major Austrian positions in this talks about currency reform was well-defined amount of current silver coins should be kept to support the needs of working class people and the rural population. The mass parties are becoming stronger in this time, and the conservative liberal parties are declining in influence. So they have to do a little bit for the petit bourgeoisie and for population of rural areas. This was suspected by Hungary as a prolongation of a double standard, silver-gold standard. And so we had firstly no progress in these consultations, which was expression of political antagonism. The next step were debates about the budget in the Austrian parliament in June 1891. The first debate about the currency reform in the parliament. This was can be characterized as a very polemic debate, and the most intense polemics came from the Young Czech party side and from the speakers of the Austrian Christian camp. The first consequence was negotiations with Hungary about the currency reform were deferred. Then continued in January 1892 after interventions from Budapest and public support by the emperor. The Austrian part, the public was not particularly enthusiastic about the currency reform in those times. The strongest objections against the gold standard were raised by the Christian socialists. The reform also met with opposition from numerous conservatives coming from the countryside who objected to it for economic reasons. After this consultations, discussions in the parliament, there was an agreement between Hungary and Austria that they continued discussion about currency reform, and they introduced two enquete commissions which should discuss monetary reform. Of course, because this dualism and this competition between Budapest and Vienna, they met separately in Budapest and in Vienna. The questions were, or comments were be asked for on these questions: which currency shall be put to reason? Shall also give a circulation fixed of the quotas of silver in case of the introduction of gold currency? Which principles shall apply to the conversion of the existing florin into gold? Which currency unit shall be chosen? The Hungarian enquete commission was clearly pro-gold standard because it was the Hungarian goal, a political goal, to introduce this. Of interest is the enquete in Vienna. Only 2 members voted against the introduction of the gold standard, but the argument wasn't a theoretical one or an empirical one. Mostly, some empirical arguments were pro-gold standard available, but it was an argument that there is no rational choice in economic sense. They were consulted in this enquete commission because the governments want to introduce a gold standard, nothing else. So they understood their duty as a discussion about the best way, economically the best way to come to a new economic monetary order. So you can, if you study these proceedings, you will often read this. Well, yes, we have no, we can't decide it. The government wants a gold standard. Everybody around us entered the gold standard, and we have no other choice. So we have to deal with this. It was not an argument against silver or against bimetallism or against paper money. It was to discuss this, how to deal with a new political environment. There were no differences in the question of the currency unit. The questions whether choosing gold or silver was, as I told you, understood as a rhetoric one. The question of silver circulation, greater disagreements arose in the context of the assessment of the need of silver circulation. Only a minority of the experts voted for pure gold currency. Majority saw moderate circulation of silver as compatible with the criteria of the gold currency. The most intensive controversy was sparked by the conversion rate of the gold florin into the old florin into the gold currency. This applied both to the different groups in Austria and to the relationship between Austria and Hungary. People with fixed incomes were interested in a hard and stable money. They called it schwerer Gulden. Debtors, farmers, export trade, industry, state preferred light money, called it einen leichten Gulden. The supporters of this heavy or stable currency demanded a monetary unit which corresponded to 2.5 gold franc like it was fixed in 1867. The supporters of a light currency preferred a parity of 2 francs for the paper florin, gold premium 25%. The settlement of this dispute, a compromise which took the Hungarian interests especially into account, the mean average value of the exchange rate of the Austrian currency of the period 1879 to 1901 should serve, that was the compromise, as base for the value of the planned currency. So we got a gold premium of 19.032%. Of interest is the discussion in the parliament in 1892. When you open the proceedings, you see first we debate currency reform bills. We have 35 speakers against, in opposition to the bills. So we have no speaker in the first round who want to speak for the currency reform bills. So that's amazing. In the end, it was the bills passed the parliaments. You know that. But, in these controversies, national conflicts were at the core. Relevant economic and financial arguments mixed with national polemics. There are a lot of examples. I demonstrated only with 2 or 3. This absolutist centralism, framed by Germanizing allures, has also produced the almost immortal twins. It's a chronic deficit and a paper economy. Young Czechs reproached the governments of Hungarian and Austrian governments of political inability on the field of monetary policy, resulting in social and political discrimination of the Slav nations. Ask all the peoples of Austria and they will tell you that it is a capitalist dungeon, but the Slavs consider it a Dantesque inferno at the gates of which all national hopes wither. So this argument against this free-floating policy of the paper money against silver and gold, and would be a good argument for hands tying, let's say for monometallism like gold standard. But the consequence is not to say we need consequent and well-defined regulations of a monetary order. They say, no, this Austrian government isn't able to manage a multi-ethnic state like the Austrian half of the monarchy. We vote against these bills. So that was the argument. Other objections which came from German conservative sides, the choice between monometallism, bimetallism, and paper money was debated. Especially the middle, lower class-oriented Christian socialists. It's because the party, the official party, was founded a year later in 1893. This Christian socialist stigmatized the gold currency as profoundly unsocial. Karl Lueger praised the paper economy, called for maintaining the status quo. inconvertible paper money based on double standard. Quote, "The paper money is like oil which calms down the waves of the ocean and relatively calm glides our ship along now. But how we can exist after introducing the gold standard, I don't know. We are on a paper currency island now. Let us staying there." End of this quote. We had nearly only argumentation contra the introducing of the gold standard in the parliamentary debate. But amazing, at the end, the bills passed both parliaments, those that in Budapest and that in Vienna. How to manage this is the same like you go to Brussels to consultations about eggs and butter. So this principle of equivalence and changing benefits, and so it's the same thing. The Slovenes got some new elementary schools was teach in Slovene language, and the Ukrainians got some more autonomy and some polytechnics there, and so on. That was the way to bring it through the parliament. It was a bundle of 5 acts which formalized the new basis of Austro-Hungarian currency. The preparation of this gold currency lasted until the 1st of January in 1900, when it officially became the legal tender in Austria-Hungary. Short gold content of the new gold crown was fixed by law. Issuing bank was to stand ready to purchase gold bars at par, minus a rebate that covered coinage expenses. Silver coinage for government account was tightly limited and was mostly to consist of recoinage of older issues. Use of silver for payment of large amounts was prohibited. 2, governments should provide gold to the central bank when they withdraw the state notes from circulation. Reintroduction of convertibility remained on the agenda until the very demise of the monarchy. It was never introduced. We heard it yesterday. Here you see the accumulation of the holdings in this should be gold, not gold, but in gold and gold reserves and gold currencies, and you have the silver, which is almost on the same level, and the gold holdings in gold emerged in this time, 1891 to 1913. Maybe look on the GDP. You see here old Austria, old Hungary, and the monarchy as a whole. You see, you have in old Austria average growing rate of 1.4, for old Hungary 2 points, and for the whole monarchy 1.63 in this period from 1870 to 1910. It is not the lowest growth rate, but it isn't one of the best with this. You see it in comparison with Belgium, Netherlands, France, Germany, Denmark, Italy, and so on. One of the problems was and I finish after this, the growing gap between rich regions and poor regions. I demonstrate this only with Galicia and Lower Austria. This is Lower Austria, including Vienna, and this is Galicia, it's the poorest region of the Austrian half of the monarchy. And you see you have growth of GDP per capita in both regions, but the gap between the well-performing region and the poor regions is growing and not declining. So I think that was one of the central problems of Austria-Hungary in the end of the monarchy. Okay. What I wanted to show you is that we have, or my argument is that we have a sort of instrumentalization of monetary theory or monetary arguments for national interest or interest of national groups. And the other sort is that we have an instrumentalization, or besides the regular bargaining between social groups. And I think that this was a strong reason that we can't say that we have a rational choice in the sense of economic theory when we have here this monetary reform. Thank you for your attention.
I have just two questions on facts. I have strong interest in the emphasis on emphasis on paper money. I would like to know how high the reserve ratio in issuing notes. I think this period almost major countries said 100%, but actually to what extent security is allowed? It's different country by country. This is the first question. The other question is, I'm quite interested in the actually two treasuries working. Not incidentally, 1867, the year of Latin Monetary Union working, is a year, my specialty, Maria Teresa Dara, demonetized in Austria. I think, but spite of that, they continue to issue Maria Teresa Dara because they could enjoy seniority. So I would like to ask, which side of treasury is responsible for mint? Because mint, through minting the Maria Teresa Dara, so either side continue to keep the profit.
It was allowed to remint the existing coins, silver coins, but it wasn't allowed to buy new silver bullion and to print new coins from new silver. You had to deal. You see this in this. The government could do with this rest of silver what they want. They could mint it or take it in the till as they want. And then it became an after 1892 it became a duty of the issuing bank. Yeah, they transferred gold and silver to the central bank. The state notes were changed against bank notes, and so that was the procedure. So the ceiling and the margins were defined in these privilege charters. Every 10 years, new. And it was a result of a bargaining between the Hungarian government, the Austrian government, and the National Bank. How to deal about the money supply, about supply with credits, about issuing silver or gold coins. That was subject of a treaty which had to be renewed every 10 years, and the talks about such a renewal lasted up to 24 months or longer.
But it is not clear for me why Hungary would push so strong for hard peg, because if I remember correctly, they are agricultural exporters, and they also face a lot of immigration from in this period. So why would they push so hard for a strong currency? Because they want to borrow independently on foreign markets? What was the reason?
That was a central. The borrowing costs were a central argument. The problem were losses in agricultural exports, okay, I have to say, since 1867, every treasury could issue their own bonds, and Hungary invested a lot in infrastructure, in subvention of new industry and so on, and this was financed on foreign markets. I have a figure on it, but I didn't present it here now because of my time. But I can send the whole long paper and you will find it. It was what you told yesterday on the Japanese. A second or another problem was of the deficits was that the Slav nations, or the representatives, especially the Czechs, said you are going in deficits, which we have to pay for. In Bohemia was most developed industry, for instance, and you going to burn our monies in wars with somebody, or in fighting down in bloodshed in 1848, Radetzky's bloodshed against the Czechs and the Italian people and so on. It was a major conflict and in the discussions about currency reform. And the reduction of the deficits was one of the central points that you found enough people agreeing in this reform. And the second was to sterilize a little bit the economy, the interior economy, against the consequences of the gold standard. We talked about it yesterday, and that was the reason why I didn't talk about this today.